Princess Zara stood at the viewport of the Royal Observatory, her four slender arms tensed as she watched the small Earth ship approach. The vessel looked primitive compared to the sleek Vexorian cruisers that surrounded it, yet something about it made her nervous. The humans inside were from a planet that her scientists called a death world, a place so harsh that any species surviving there must be incredibly tough and dangerous. "Your Highness, the human delegate will dock in 10 minutes, said Advisor Grell, bowing low. His skin shimmered blue in the starlight. "Have the guards been doubled?" Zara asked, not taking her eyes off the approaching ship. "Yes, Princess, though the Earth government might see that as a sign of distrust." Zara finally turned to face her advisor. "I don't care. Father may want these diplomatic talks, but I've seen the reports. Humans survive conditions that would kill a Vexorian instantly. They heal from injuries that would be fatal to us. They can live in radiation zones, extreme temperatures, and even breathe toxic gases for short periods. All true, Your Highness. But the reports also say they are an emerging civilization eager to make peaceful contact." Zara snorted. Predators are often patient before they strike. When the time came to meet the human, Zara wore her ceremonial armor instead of the traditional welcoming robes. She stood tall on the receiving platform, surrounded by royal guards, as the airlock opened. The human who stepped through was not what she expected. He was shorter than she imagined, with a lean build rather than the monster she had pictured. He had only 2 arms, pale skin, and dark hair cut short. His eyes were a deep green, alert but calm. He wore a simple blue uniform with few decorations. "Princess Zara of the Vexorian Empire," he said in perfect Vexorian, bowing exactly the right amount, not too low to suggest weakness, not too high to suggest disrespect. "I am Lieutenant Eric Hayes of Earth. Thank you for welcoming me to your magnificent home world." Zara blinked all 4 of her eyes. His pronunciation was flawless. How long had he studied their language? "Lieutenant Hayes," she replied stiffly. "Vexor Prime welcomes you." As they walked through the grand halls of the palace, Zara kept her distance. She noticed how the human moved, smoothly but always alert, his eyes taking in everything. The guards watched him closely, hands near their weapons. "Your architecture is amazing," Eric said, looking up at the crystal domes. "It reminds me of Gothic cathedrals on Earth, but with more natural light." Zara was surprised he would know such a specific cultural reference. "You have studied our buildings." "I studied everything I could about your civilization," he replied with a small smile. "Though books and videos can't compare to seeing it firsthand." At the diplomatic reception, Zara watched as Eric navigated the complicated Vexorian greeting rituals without a single mistake. He knew when to speak and when to be silent. He even correctly used the royal dining utensils that most visiting diplomats struggled with. Later, when an elderly council member dropped a ceremonial cup, Eric caught it before it hit the ground. His reflexes impossibly fast. The room went silent. "Forgive me," Eric said, carefully returning the cup. "On Earth, it's considered helpful to catch falling objects." "Your reflexes are impressive," Zara said, studying him more carefully now. "Just good timing," he replied modestly. "This cup looks very old and valuable. It's from the First Dynasty, over 10,000 years old," the council member explained, clearly relieved. That night, alone in her chambers, Zara reviewed the security footage of Eric's movements. Everything about him was a contradiction. He was polite but confident, respectful but not submissive. He had the deadly capabilities the reports described, yet he used them to save a cultural artifact. The human was not what she expected, and that made him even more dangerous. Zara would need to watch him very closely in the days ahead. A week passed since the human's arrival. Princess Zara stood hidden behind a column in the royal gardens, watching Lieutenant Eric Hayes. He sat alone on a bench, holding a Vexorian string instrument called the lyrel. His fingers moved carefully over its 7 strings, producing sounds that were almost correct, but not quite right. "He practices every morning," whispered Advisor Grell, who stood beside her. "The palace staff says he rises before dawn to study our ways." Zara frowned. "What else have you observed?" "He spends hours in the cultural archives. He's learning our history, art, even our cooking. Yesterday, he asked the kitchen staff to teach him how to prepare royal berries without touching the poisonous skin." "Poisonous to Vexorians," Zara corrected. "I wonder if they would harm him at all." In the garden, Eric put down the instrument and made notes on a small device. His movements were efficient, deliberate. Zara had noticed how differently he moved compared to her people. Always balanced, always ready. "Perhaps we should test his intentions," Zara said suddenly. "Invite him to join the hunting party tomorrow." The next day, Zara led a group of nobles and Eric to the royal hunting grounds. The forests of Vexor Prime were famous for their beauty and danger. Crystal trees sparkled in the light of twin suns, while predators lurked in the shadows. "Our target today is the horned thresher," Zora explained as they walked. "A dangerous beast, but considered a great honor to hunt." Eric listened carefully. "May I ask how they're hunted?" "We drive them toward the silver pools. They cannot swim, so they panic and become easier to spear." Something changed in the human's expression. It was subtle, but Zara caught it. "Is there a problem, Lieutenant Hayes?" Eric hesitated before speaking. "On Earth, we have conservation laws. Before hunting any species, we study their numbers and health. May I ask if threshers are plentiful?" The question surprised Zara. "They were once. Now they are rare. That's why hunting them brings such honor." "Princess, with all respect, on Earth we've learned that hunting rare creatures often leads to their extinction. We've lost many species this way." The nobles murmured in shock. No one questioned royal traditions. "You refuse our honor?" Zara asked sharply. "I deeply appreciate the invitation," Eric said, bowing, "but I must respectfully decline participation. I would be honored to join you and learn, but I cannot take part in the actual hunt." Later that evening, Zara found Eric in the palace library. He stood when she entered. "You embarrassed me today," she said directly. "That was not my intention, Princess. I apologize." "Yet you would not change your decision." Eric met her gaze. "Some principles cannot be compromised, even for diplomacy. On Earth, we learned hard lessons about protecting our natural world." "And you think we haven't?" Zara felt her temper rising. "I think every civilization learns these lessons in their own time," he replied calmly. "Earth nearly destroyed itself before we understood." This caught Zora's attention. "What do you mean?" "We drove many species to extinction. We poisoned our waters, polluted our air. We fought wars over the remaining resources." His voice softened. "Only by changing our ways did we survive to reach the stars." Zara studied him with new interest. The human wasn't being superior. He was sharing a warning from his own history. That night, she requested the complete environmental reports on thresher populations. The report shocked her. Only 57 threshers remained in the wild, facts the royal family had never been shown. 3 days later, Princess Zora announced a new royal conservation area where threshers would be protected, not hunted. The nobles were stunned by the change. When Eric heard the news, he said nothing, but offered a respectful nod when their paths crossed in the palace halls. "Perhaps humans are dangerous in ways I didn't expect," Zora told Grell that evening. His ideas disrupted centuries of tradition with just a few words. "Is that a bad thing, Your Highness?" Grell asked carefully. Zara watched the sunset through her window. "I'm not sure yet, but he's certainly not what I expected." The grand festival of stars arrived, an ancient Vexorian celebration held once every 3 cycles. The royal palace glowed with thousands of floating lights as guests from across the empire gathered in the central hall. Princess Zora sat on a small throne beside her father. King Zenith, the human, Lieutenant Eric Hayes, stood with other diplomatic guests in a special area near the royal platform. He wore a formal Earth uniform, looking both respectful and slightly uncomfortable with the attention he received. "The human continues to surprise us," King Zenith said quietly to his daughter. "Your reports of his behavior are most unusual." "He is not what I expected," Zara admitted. "He studies our ways with genuine interest." "Do you still fear him?" Zara considered the question. "I remain cautious. His kind can survive conditions that would kill us instantly. Yet he shows unusual restraint." The king nodded. "Sometimes strength reveals itself through restraint, not display." The ceremony began with traditional music. Dancers moved in complex patterns across the floor, their forearms creating beautiful shapes in the air. Eric watched with clear fascination, his eyes never leaving the performance. Nobody noticed the small group of Vexorians who moved silently behind the columns at the edge of the hall. Nobody except Eric. Later, Zara would review the security recordings and marvel at what happened next. One moment, the human was standing peacefully. The next, his posture changed completely. His body tensed, his eyes narrowed. He began moving toward the royal platform before the guards noticed anything wrong. The first sign of trouble came when a hooded figure rushed from behind a column, raising a weapon toward Princess Zora. The royal guards spotted the threat and moved to intercept, but they were too far away. Eric moved fastest of all. He crossed the space between himself and the princess in seconds, putting his body directly in the path of danger. The energy blast from the weapon struck him in the shoulder. He stumbled but didn't fall. With his uninjured arm, he pushed the princess down, shielding her with his body as more blasts filled the air. Security forces quickly surrounded the royal family, capturing the attackers, members of the Pure Vexor movement, a group opposed to relations with other species. In the chaos, no one immediately noticed that the human was bleeding. "You're injured," Zora said, looking at the dark red blood soaking through his uniform. "It's not serious," Eric replied, though his face had gone pale. "Are you hurt, princess?" "You took a blast meant for me," she said, not answering his question. "Why?" Before he could answer, medical staff arrived and took him away for treatment. For 3 days, Eric recovered in the medical wing. The doctors marveled at his body's response to injury, how his blood clotted quickly, how his tissues began repairing themselves at a rate Vexorians could not match. On the 4th day, Princess Zora visited him. She dismissed the attendants and guards, wanting to speak privately. "The royal physician says you'll recover fully," she said, standing at the foot of his bed. "Your medical technology is excellent," Eric replied. He sat up carefully, moving his injured shoulder with only a slight wince. "You could have died." Eric looked surprised by her statement. "It's my job to maintain positive relations between our worlds. Getting you killed would have been a poor start." Despite herself, Zara laughed. "You have an unusual sense of humor for someone who nearly died. Humans often joke about serious things. It helps us cope." Zora moved closer to his bed. "The attackers confessed their plan. They meant to kill me to stop our worlds from forming an alliance. Then I'm glad I was there." "Why did you react before my own guards? How did you know?" Eric's face grew serious. "On Earth, I served in protection details. You develop instincts for spotting threats. Something about their movement caught my attention." For the first time, Zara looked at the human not with fear or suspicion, but with genuine curiosity. "I was taught that humans are dangerous because they evolved on a death world. But perhaps what makes you dangerous also makes you valuable allies." "We're not so different," Eric said. "Humans protect what matters to us: family, friends, allies. It's how we survived on Earth." As she left the medical wing, Princess Zora realized something had changed. She no longer feared the human. Instead, she wanted to understand him. 2 weeks after the assassination attempt, Lieutenant Eric Hayes stood on a high balcony overlooking the grand arena of Vexor Prime. Thousands of Vexorians filled the stands, their blue skin shimmering in the sunlight. Today marked the beginning of the royal tournament, an ancient competition held every 10 years. Impressed, Princess Zora asked, joining him at the railing. "It's incredible," Eric admitted. "Nothing on Earth compares to this. The tournament determines who will join the Royal Guard and military leadership," Zora explained. "Only our best warriors compete." Below them, Vexorian athletes prepared for the events. They were tall and graceful with powerful muscles visible beneath their blue skin. Each had 4 arms, giving them advantages in both combat and balance. "What are the challenges?" Eric asked. "Strength trials, endurance tests, strategic combat, and mental challenges. The tournament tests all aspects of a warrior." Eric nodded with respect. "A comprehensive approach." Princess Zora watched him carefully before speaking again. "The Royal Council has been discussing your actions during the assassination attempt." They were impressed. "I was just doing my job." "Perhaps, but it has led to an unusual decision." Zora turned to face him directly. "The Council extends an invitation for you to participate in the tournament." Eric's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? But I'm not Vexorian." "Exactly. No outsider has ever competed." Some council members objected strongly. She smiled slightly. "But I convinced them." "Why?" "Because I'm curious what a human can do. And because after what happened at the ceremony, many want to see your abilities firsthand." That evening, news spread quickly through the palace. The human would compete in the royal tournament. Some Vexorians were outraged, others excited. All were curious. "You realize this is a test," Advisor Grell told Eric as he provided him with the traditional competitor's clothing, modified for a 2-armed body. "Many believe you will fail immediately." "I probably will," Eric said honestly, "but I appreciate the chance to try." The first day of competition began with the strength trials. Vexorian competitors lifted massive stone blocks, some weighing more than Eric's entire body. The crowd watched eagerly when the human's turn came. Eric approached the smallest block, knowing he couldn't match the 4-armed Vexorians in pure strength. The crowd grew quiet as he positioned himself. Instead of trying to lift it straight up as the others had done, he used leverage techniques, gradually working the block upward. He succeeded but took twice as long as the others. "Clever," Princess Zora commented from the royal box. "He adapts." In the running event, Eric surprised everyone. While Vexorians had longer legs, humans had evolved as persistence hunters. Eric kept a steady pace while others tired, finishing in the middle of the pack. The swimming challenge nearly ended his competition. Vexorians could hold their breath for over 30 minutes underwater. Eric managed barely 3 minutes before having to surface, gasping for air. He finished last, but the crowd applauded his effort. "He knows his limitations," King Zenith observed to his daughter. "Yet he continues anyway." The strategy competition involved a complex Vexorian game similar to 3-dimensional chess. The human studied the rules quickly and played defensively. Though he lost his matches, he lasted longer than expected against lifelong players. By the final day of competition, Eric had not won any events but had not finished last overall. The final challenge was combat training. Warriors faced each other with practice weapons in the arena. When Eric stepped into the ring against a 4-armed opponent twice his size, the crowd fell silent. No one expected him to last more than seconds. The Vexorian warrior attacked with all 4 arms, wielding practice blades. Eric didn't try to match strength against strength. Instead, he moved constantly, dodging rather than blocking, using the arena space to his advantage. When he finally lost, taking a hit that would have been fatal in real combat, the crowd stood and applauded. He had lasted 5 full minutes against one of Vexor's elite warriors. That night at the award ceremony, Eric received a special recognition medal, not for winning, but for showing extraordinary adaptation and determination. "You surprised them," Princess Zora told him afterward. "You surprised me." "How so?" "You knew you couldn't win, yet you competed with honor. You found different ways to approach each challenge." She studied him with new respect. Perhaps that's the true strength of humans, not your physical abilities, but how you use them. The warning sirens woke Eric from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed through the palace as he hurried into the corridor, finding Vexorians running in all directions. "What's happening?" he asked a passing guard. "The Krell Dominion has attacked our outer colonies," the guard shouted. "We are evacuating the royal family." The Krell. Eric had read about them in the cultural archives. A warlike species that had challenged the Vexorian Empire for centuries. He rushed toward the royal quarters, knowing his duty was to maintain contact with Earth if war broke out. The palace shook as something exploded nearby. Through windows, he saw ships firing in the night sky. "Lieutenant Hayes," Advisor Grell called, waving frantically. "The princess needs evacuation. Her transport leaves from the lower hangar." Eric followed Grell through emergency passages. They found Princess Zora coordinating with military officers, her face tense but composed. "The king has already departed for the command center," she told Eric. "I must reach the secondary palace on Vexor 3. More explosions rocked the building. A ceiling panel crashed down, narrowly missing them. "This way, Your Highness," a guard called, leading them to a small transport ship. They boarded quickly, along with several guards and staff. The ship lifted off, accelerating hard through the atmosphere. Through viewport windows, they saw battles raging in orbit around Vexor Prime. "We must reach the jump point," the pilot said. From there, the ship rocked violently. Warning lights flashed on the control panel. "Engine damage," the pilot shouted. "We're losing power." "Can we reach Vexor 3? Zara asked. "No, Princess. We must make emergency landing on Kilara Moon." Eric knew about Kilara from his studies. A small moon with toxic atmosphere and extreme temperature swings. Not ideal for Vexorians. The landing was rough. The ship skidded across rocky ground before stopping near a cliff edge. The impact damaged their communications array. "Status report," Princess Zara demanded, rising from her seat. "Bad news, Your Highness," the pilot said. "Life support is damaged. The air recyclers will fail within hours. And outside conditions. Atmosphere is toxic to Vexorians. Temperature will drop to freezing after sunset." All eyes turned to Eric. Everyone knew humans had evolved to withstand harsher conditions than Vexorians. "I can survive outside longer than your people," he acknowledged. "What supplies do we have?" They gathered emergency kits and assessed the situation. The ship couldn't fly again without repairs. Communications were down, and night was coming, bringing deadly cold. "We need shelter and a way to signal for help," Eric said. "The emergency beacon is damaged, but I might be able to increase its range if I can reach that ridge." He pointed to a distant hill. "The toxic air will kill any Vexorian who tries," one guard said. "Then I'll go," Eric replied simply. Princess Zora watched as Eric prepared, putting on a breathing mask that would filter the worst toxins but not all. "The cold will affect you too," she said. "Not as quickly as it would affect you," he answered. "Humans evolved in varying climates. We can handle temperature swings better than your people." Before leaving, Eric helped set up the ship's remaining systems to preserve heat for the Vexorians. He showed them how to seal compartments to maintain warmth. "I should return before full dark," he told Zara. "If not," he hesitated. "You will return," she said firmly. "That's an order, Lieutenant." The toxic air burned his lungs despite the mask as he made his way across the barren landscape. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making it easier to carry the heavy beacon equipment. From the ship, Princess Zora watched through viewers as the human crossed terrain that would kill her people in minutes. His movements were steady, determined. "He's not what I expected when I first met him," she told Grell softly. "How so, Your Highness?" "I feared humans because they evolved on a death world. Now I see that same harsh evolution made them perfect allies in a crisis." She continued watching as Eric climbed the distant ridge. "He doesn't just survive. he helps others survive too. As darkness fell and temperatures plummeted, the first rescue ships appeared on the horizon, following the strengthened signal from the beacon. The human had saved them all. The rescue ship carried Princess Zara, Eric, and the survivors back toward Vexor Prime. But as they approached the planet, they saw the devastation. Parts of the capital city were in ruins. Smoke rose from the royal district. Status report: Zara commanded the ship's captain. The Krell attacked without warning, Your Highness. They targeted government buildings first. The captain hesitated. They've taken the royal palace. The king is their prisoner. Zara's 4 hands clenched. My father. Alive. Princess. But the Krell demand the Vexorian Empire's immediate surrender. They've given 3 days to decide. When they landed at a secure military base outside the capital, chaos greeted them. Military leaders argued loudly in the command center. Some wanted to attack immediately to free the king. Others feared this would lead to his execution. The Krell forces outnumber us, General Vax shouted. A direct assault would fail. We cannot surrender the Empire. Another officer responded. Zara entered the room, and everyone fell silent, bowing. Princess, you're alive, General Vax said. We feared the worst when your ship disappeared. We survived thanks to Lieutenant Hayes, she replied, nodding toward Eric, who stood quietly behind her. The general's eyes narrowed at the human. This is a Vexorian matter. Perhaps the Earth representative should wait elsewhere. He stays, Zara said firmly. Now brief me on everything. The briefing revealed the grim situation. The Krell had planned their attack for years. They held the king in the palace throne room, surrounded by their elite forces. Any rescue attempt seemed impossible. That night, Zara stood alone on a balcony, staring at the distant palace now occupied by enemies. Eric found her there, bringing a hot drink the humans called tea. You should rest, princess, he said gently. How can I? My father is a prisoner. The council expects me to lead, but I don't know what to do. For the first time, Zara let her royal mask slip, showing her fear. If I surrender, our people lose freedom. If I attack, my father dies. Eric was quiet for a moment. May I tell you about something from Earth history? She nodded. Throughout our history, leaders have faced impossible choices. In ancient times, a queen named Elizabeth faced a superior enemy armada threatening to invade her country. Everyone told her surrender was the only option. Did she surrender? No. She found another way. She used smaller, faster ships against the enemy's large vessels. She changed the rules of engagement. Zora looked at him with new interest. What are you suggesting? That sometimes the direct approach isn't the best one. The Krell expect either surrender or a frontal assault. But what else can we do? On Earth, we have a saying, where there's a will, there's a way. Eric leaned forward. Princess, I studied the palace layout extensively during my stay. I know passages that may not appear on official plans. Hope flickered in Zora's eyes. Are you suggesting infiltration? A small team might succeed where an army would fail. The next morning, Princess Zora called the generals together. She presented a plan that shocked them all. A small strike team would infiltrate the palace through ancient tunnels not on modern maps. Eric had discovered them in historical texts while researching Vexorian architecture. This is madness, General Vax protested. We cannot risk the heir to the throne on such a mission. I will lead this mission myself, Zara stated firmly. And Lieutenant Hayes will join us, a human, in a Vexorian special operation. Another general scoffed. The human who survived toxic air to save us, Zara replied. Who notices things our people miss, who thinks differently than we do. She stood tall, her decision made. Sometimes we need new perspectives to solve old problems. The generals reluctantly agreed, and preparations began immediately. 5 Vexorian elite soldiers would join Zara and Eric. They trained quickly, reviewing palace layouts and Krell weaknesses. As they prepared their weapons and equipment, Eric showed the Team Earth combat techniques that the Krell would not expect. "Why are you helping us?" one soldier asked him. "This isn't your war." Eric checked his gear before answering. "Earth and Vexor are allies now. Where I come from, allies stand together." Princess Zura overheard his words and realized how far they had come since their first meeting. She had feared this human once. Now she was trusting him with the fate of her father and her empire. Darkness covered the capital city as Zora, Eric, and 5 elite Vexorian warriors moved through ancient tunnels beneath the royal palace. The passages were narrow and damp, forgotten by most Vexorians for centuries. "These tunnels were built during the First Dynasty," Zara whispered. "My ancestors created escape routes in case of rebellion. Now they become entry points instead," Eric replied, checking his equipment one last time. According to their intelligence, the Krell kept King Zenith in the throne room, using it as their command center. 20 elite Krell guards surrounded him at all times. "Remember the plan," Zora told her team. "We create diversions in 3 locations, then the main team extracts my father." They reached a junction where the tunnels split. 3 warriors would create distractions in different parts of the palace. Zara, Eric, and the remaining 2 Vexorians would attempt the rescue. "Good luck," Eric told the diversion teams as they separated. The tunnel ended at a hidden panel behind an ancient tapestry in a small room near the throne room. They waited in silence, counting minutes until the first explosion shook the palace. "Now," Zora whispered. They moved quietly through corridors, avoiding Krell patrols rushing toward the distractions. When they reached the servants' entrance to the throne room, they paused, listening. Inside, they heard angry Krell voices. Eric peered through a small gap in the door. 6 guards remain with the king," he whispered. "The commander just left with the others." "Better odds than we expected," Zara replied. The second and third diversions exploded in distant parts of the palace. More Krell soldiers ran to investigate, leaving only the most essential guards. "It's time," Zora said. They burst into the throne room from 2 different entrances. The surprise was complete. Before the Krell could react properly, 2 were down. The others fought fiercely, their clawed hands dangerous weapons. Eric moved differently than the Vexorians, using quick, unpredictable movements that confused the Krell guards. When one Krell charged him with superior strength, Eric used the creature's momentum against it, redirecting its force rather than meeting it head-on, a human martial art the Krell had never encountered. In minutes, the guards were defeated. King Zenith stood from his throne, looking at his daughter with pride. "Well done, Zora," he said. "Your mother would be proud of your courage." "We must hurry, Your Majesty," Eric urged, checking the corridor. "The Krell will realize the diversions are a trick soon." They escaped through the same hidden tunnels, emerging far from the palace as Krell forces realized their hostage was gone. By dawn, news spread through the capital. The king was safe, and the Vexorian fleet was moving against the surprised Krell forces. 1 week later, the Krell commander surrendered. Without their hostage, their plan had failed. Vexorian ships had isolated the invasion force and cut off their supplies. In the restored throne room, King Zenith held a special ceremony. The heroes of the rescue mission received medals of valor, including Lieutenant Eric Hayes of Earth. "For centuries, we Vexorians have looked to the stars with caution," the king addressed the gathered crowd. "We feared what strange beings might exist there. When we discovered humans came from a death world, that fear deepened." The king looked directly at Eric. "Yet we have learned that the very traits that made humans dangerous, their adaptability, their unusual thinking, their resilience, also make them extraordinary allies." After the ceremony, Princess Zora found Eric on the same balcony where they had planned the rescue. "My father has proposed a formal alliance between our worlds," she said. "Not just diplomatic relations, but a true partnership, military cooperation, cultural exchanges, scientific collaboration." "Earth will be honored," Eric replied. Our peoples have much to learn from each other. You will return home soon. My mission here is complete, he said. A new Earth ambassador will arrive next month. Zora was quiet for a moment. You know, when we first met, I feared you. I thought humans were dangerous predators. And now I understand the truth. What makes any species truly advanced is not their technology or their strength, but their capacity for cooperation and growth. She smiled. The first time you surprised me was when you caught that ancient cup. The last time was when you helped save my father using knowledge of our own history. Perhaps that's humanity's true gift, Eric said. We see possibilities where others see obstacles. As the twin suns set on Vexor Prime, the human and the princess who once feared him stood side by side, looking toward a future neither could have imagined when they first met. A future where two very different worlds would stand stronger together than apart.